Chris Kluwe is going to be, there he is indeed right now. Chris Kluwe is kind enough to join us. Yeah, that Chris Kluwe. Former Minnesota Vikings punter and, of course, a progressive advocate who has been a hero to many people. He is in town in Minneapolis, St. Paul over the last few days for a few different events, and he's kind enough today to join us to talk about those events, as well as also probably have a little bit of a therapy session with everyone out there because things have been a little rough. Chris, it's good to see you, my friend.
Yeah, good to see you too, Matt. Thanks for having me on.
My pleasure. Thank you very much for coming on back. And you are in town. I want to make sure I mention this. You were in for the weekend. It was Convergence. What exactly was that?
Yeah, so Convergence is basically just a huge nerd convention. It was it was at the Hyatt Regency on Nicollet Mall, and yeah, just a ton of like anime, video games, tabletop board games, cosplay, people just being nerds. And I was on a bunch of panels where I talked about being both a sports player and a huge nerd. So yeah, it was an absolute blast. They do it every year and highly recommend it. If you have any interest in like nerd adjacent hobbies, Convergence is a lot of fun.
And you're also, I should mention, right now currently working with Games Done Quick. This is an organization. It's raising funds for a great organization that's actually been in the news lately with Doctors Without Borders, as they've been trying to get into some of these areas, especially the Gaza, and try to help out people there. What's that organization all about?
Yeah, so Games Done Quick is a great organization. I think they do 4 yearly events, and each one benefits a different cause. So this one's Summer Games Done Quick, and it's at the Hilton off of Marquette. And yeah, what it is, it's a bunch of speedrunners who are going through sometimes some really random games, to see how fast they can beat these things. And then people donate to raise money for Doctors Without Borders. So I had a friend who was able to get me in, and I took my kids because my kids are huge fans of these games. And so yesterday we watched, it was like Donkey Kong Bongos. So you play the game with this literal like bongos controller. And I mean, the person playing it was just absolutely phenomenal at how good they were at the game. And then we watched Legend of Zelda, one of the Game Boy versions, where they're using all these like little tricks and tips to sort of hack through the game almost, where it was like they're skipping half of the intended mechanics, and the crowd's cheering every time they pull one off, because for a lot of this stuff you got to be like frame perfect on it. Like it is legit, like the timing's in the milliseconds. And yeah, these speedrunners, they're just phenomenal at what they do, and obviously it's a great cause to support.
Are they experienced with these games, or is it something they're just kind of getting this, here's the game, you got to do this in 5 minutes?
Oh yeah, no, they're super experienced. So a lot of these speedrunners, like they'll have their communities online that they'll stream to, and they spend tons of time trying to like shave off even a half second from their runs. Yeah, and they're looking for multiple ways to break the game in order to make their runs faster. So it's a really fascinating community. And if you ever get some free time, like just check out some speed runs, and you'll be astonished at the ways that people do make games do things that those games were clearly not intended to do.
I one time got up to level 23 on Galga, and so yeah, I'm very. This is the one thing I'm very proud of is my. That was it. I've tried video games. I just don't have the eye-hand coordination, man. I've tried it with my kids as well. They're like, Dad, come play this. And I remember just like some of the Lego games. I'm like, okay, what am I doing wrong? And they're finally they out of disgust they take the controller out of my hands.
Yeah, no, I'm the same way. So I used to play a lot of like first-person shooters and Twitch reflex-oriented games, and nowadays I'm like, yeah, no, I need games that I can pause. Like I just should give me the turn-based tactical games. That's more my speed.
We last time we checked in with you, obviously we had the situation in Huntington Beach, California, where you had that fantastic protest that got a lot of attention. You also then got some blowback as far as you were removed from a coaching of a football team, if I remember correctly. If we can, let's touch on that. What exactly, has there been any updates there? Obviously you're clearly trying to fight the authorities that have been overstepping their reach within Huntington Beach. Have you had any success down there?
Yeah, so I actually have really good news there. We actually passed our ballot initiatives to protect the library. So we got rid of the book banning board that they implemented, and then if they try to privatize the library, it has to go to a citywide vote. They can't just unilaterally privatize the library. And it was actually really cool to see what the final outcome of the votes were, because a lot of us were expecting it was going to be really close, right? Like, maybe a percentage point or two, or we might even lose one of them. It ended up being like 60% to 40%. So the people of Huntington Beach really turned out and said, you know what, keep your hands off our library and just like leave it alone. It's a public library. You should not be messing with it. Now, unfortunately, our city council has not yet set a date for when the initiatives will be implemented. So I think they're still trying to screw us over. So yeah, we'll definitely stay on top of that and make sure that like this is what the people voted for. You are a public servant. You need to do this.
Well, and it continues that belligerence we've seen. This idea that even with the people telling you what they want to do, I mean, my gosh, was it Missouri? They basically passed a bunch of laws, and the Republicans said, "We don't care. We're just going to undo them." You get these people out there that it's so against the idea of democracy. The people have spoken, and yet they still want to just have this minority rule. And I'm glad to see you fighting back on that.
Yeah, no, and I think it's really important, that it's happening in Huntington Beach, which the Republican Party has said outright that they view this as their test bed. Like this is their prototype area for California. All the stuff they want to do, they're trying it in Huntington Beach first. And so the fact that we're fighting it back there is super important. But yeah, I think it speaks to the broader problem, which is that as Americans right now, we are in a position where it's no longer right versus left. It's a question of, are we going to be a democracy or are we going to be some form of authoritarian rule? And it's important that people understand that that's the question. Like we can go back to arguing with each other once the country has been saved. Like at this point, we all got to pull together if we want our country to be a democratic country, and we have to say, no, we will not stand for fascism. We will not stand for authoritarianism, and we're going to show up and do what it takes in order to prevent that from happening. Because the longer we wait, the harder it becomes.
You in California have had a front row seat for this because, I mean, Trump hates California, hates Newsom, he hates a lot of things that are out there. And the consequences are fairly stark. I mean, what's going on in Los Angeles with ICE troops, but as well, I mean, I've been reading some of the stories out of the Valley with the farmers, and there's no one here to work. And, a third of our vegetables come from California. 3/4 of our fruits come from California. 3/4 of our nuts come from California. This is a major problem. And outside of, I think the ag secretary today said, we're going to take all the people from Medicaid and put them working in the fields, which, okay, great. Get your wheelchair out there and pick up some strawberries, I guess. But you have this situation where they are really, as you said, Huntington Beach. But I look at California, this is really their test zone to see how much they can get away with.
Yeah, well, and the other reason why they're trying to do it is California is one of the most powerful states in the union. I mean, we're like the fourth largest economy in the world. I mean, California is huge in terms of what it can produce and just the amount of people that are in it. It is a very large state. I think there were more Trump voters by number, right, in California than there were in the rest of the country. Like, again, there's a ton of people here. And that also goes to show that Trump really doesn't care about harming his supporters, because he's not just hurting, the liberal left in California. He's also hurting all of those Trump supporters who are like, wait a minute, like we're here too. And so again, that's why I say this isn't a right versus left thing anymore. Like this is are we going to be a democracy or are we going to be a fascist dictatorship? And it's very clear that they want us to be a fascist dictatorship. I mean, right now, like that military sweep through MacArthur Park, like that's, how much money did that cost, right? How much money are they wasting on ICE right now? And at the same time, they are holding up federal funds to rebuild LA after the fires earlier in the year. It's like they clearly aren't interested in governing for the entirety of the US. They're only interested in gaining power, using that power to hurt people. And yeah, that's not a democracy. We have to stand up against that.
I'm 56 years old. The only thing in my lifetime I think that's been anything like what we saw in MacArthur Park and we're seeing in these other ICE raids is like Kent State University back in the Vietnam War. I mean, this is truly authoritarianism, and yet I do not hear nearly enough people, the national news media, not only the Democrats, but anyone who's just not MAGA, including a lot of Republicans. I just don't hear the urgency that's saying, having a gulag in the Everglades is not the image that we should be pushing. And yet there just does seem to be this stunning amount of silence. There's people like you, thank God, who are out there letting your voice be heard. But, there's few and far between. It seems to be that people are like, okay, do we see where we're going right now? Because this is not where we want to go.
Right. And it's super difficult. I actually had this conversation with one of my friends here from Minnesota yesterday. We were out having lunch, and it's like, how do you tell people the literal factual information of what is going on without sounding like you're a conspiracy theorist? Because like the actual facts of what's going on is we have military presence in one of our major cities in an attempt to remove the democratic process there. Like, we have a concentration camp that was just built purely for the idea of rounding up American citizens and green card holders and people that are here legally in this country, but they happen to have a brown or black shade of skin. I mean, that it is textbook fascism. And when you see all the history professors start saying, "Oh yeah, no, you can call them Nazis now," like this is what the Nazis did. And I think the problem with the mainstream media is a lot of the mainstream media now is owned by billionaires. It's owned by corporations. It's owned by people who are looking at it like, oh, what about our bottom line? As opposed to, well, does the society that allows us to exist, will that continue if this keeps happening? And right now they're so focused on making money, they don't understand that at a certain point, once the fascism becomes entrenched enough, you're going to be next on the chopping block. Like, it doesn't matter how much water you carried for them. They're going to make up some sort of slight or grudge, or even just reporting from earlier, and they'd be like, okay, now it's your turn. And yeah, guess what? Now they're coming for you. Should have read the poem.
Well, well, exactly. And as we were just saying here, they're starting in California, Minnesota, Illinois, Chicago. Chicago's high on their list. They've already started doing stuff down there. Seattle, Washington. You're all listening right now. Where do you think they're going if they can somehow reign in California? They're coming for us. And we have to start fighting back now, as well as also, I will say this. I was stationed in the military. I was stationed in Nuremberg. So when I took college classes, I took them on the rise of the Third Reich and stuff like that. Yeah, this is a little bit. If they're cosplaying the Nazis, at some point, shouldn't they take off the uniform? I mean, it's kind of scary.
Yeah, no, and it's really depressing too, because at this point we have the historic parallels. Like, we saw what happened with the rise of Nazi Germany, and it shouldn't be a surprise. And like, when people ask, well, how could it happen in Germany in the 1930s? Well, this is exactly how it happened. People didn't think it was going to happen.
Yeah, exactly. Chris Kluwe is kind enough to join us. We're going to take a break. Come back. We're going to get a little bit of a therapy session with Chris when we do come on back. It is the Matt McNeil Show on your Tuesday. Thanks for being here. Chris Kluwe, kind enough to join us here. Chris, by the way, every once in a while on my YouTube feed, I get Vikings highlights games. I watched 2 games. You are a hell of a punter, man. You could kick the ball, and you were. I mean, they when you're showing the highlights and you're showing up in them because of what you're doing. You know, you were nothing. I'm not trying to make the Bears fans or the Seahawks fans angry right now, but you were a pretty good punter, man. It was nice to have you.
Well, thanks. I appreciate that. Yeah, no, I worked pretty hard at my craft. When I do something, I do it to the best of my ability. So.
There was a place, one of those places that's one of those dome places during winter, and people go and work out in there. And there were guys out there practicing kicking. And yeah, I mean, they were out there for 3-4 hours just trying to, hone it down. I mean, it is it's not nearly as easy as people sort of think it is. Although you guys, when you're really good at it, you make it look easy.
Yeah, well, I mean, and that's the mark of any professional, right? Is that they do something that is very complex, and they make it seem very easy for the people watching, where you're like, oh, I could get off the couch and go do that. And then when you get off the couch to go do it, you're just like, oh, wow, yeah, no, this is way more complicated than I thought.
You put the football through your kitchen window. Yep. No, I'm not going to do this. I imagine a lot of people are out there right now. It's been a rough few weeks. And as a matter of fact, Supreme Court just ruled that basically Trump can start gutting staffs and laying people off within the federal government. He said he can do that if he wants. It's been rough. And I have run into this. I imagine you are too. This almost therapy that you are kind of having to, people are coming to you and it's like, what do we do? How do we do this? First of all, talk a little bit about this, because we just went through the 4th of July and there was definitely a dark cloud over this country during that. What do you say to people when they come to you and you can tell that they're kind of at their wits' end, they're frustrated, they're sad, they're angry, and kind of get them honed and focused like you are, because you do a great job of saying, okay, this is not the end of this, we're still marching forward. How do you approach that?
Yeah, so there's a couple different things there, where the first one and the one that I really look at is, what has human history taught us about these situations in the past? And what human history has taught us about these situations in the past is that we have gone through some very dark days, but we have emerged from the other side, and we've built better, right? We've come back and we've created a better society. And Yeah, it takes a lot of hard work to get there. And unfortunately, a lot of times it requires a lot of sacrifice and a lot of violence. Like, which again, let me be clear, I'm not advocating for violence. Like that's, I do not want it to get to that point. But yeah, we have to be prepared for the fact that yes, things seem dismal and bleak right now, but we can make it through because we've made it through before. And then the second big thing to remember is that like this is a marathon, it's not a sprint. And fascists, they want to take the joy out of the world, right? So finding things that you enjoy and finding things that lift your spirits back up, like that is actually in its way helping to fight against fascism, right? Like so me being at this nerdy convention, like kind of recharging my batteries, like that is fighting against fascism, because now I have, like I'm okay, now I'm ready to go again. It's time to get back in the fight. So don't feel like you have to do everything all at once. Like, yeah, get involved in your local communities, get involved with your local rapid response ICE groups, do the work on the ground. But when you need to take a break, go take a break, because it doesn't do anyone any good if you burn out. Now all of a sudden you can't help anymore. So yeah, just understand that like finding joy in the midst of sorrow is one of the ways that you fight against the bad guys.
My daughter Evelyn we're talking an hour ago, was talking about this with me about, just frustrated about with the whole thing in Texas and everything. And I just sort of said, I go to state parks. I go hike at state parks, get out into the wilderness. There's not many people around me. It's real pretty, I think. And, you've got to find your own groove wherever that is, and kind of take that break, because if you wallow in this cesspool, it will infect you badly.
Yeah, and a defeatist attitude doesn't help anyone. Like, and you see that a lot on social media too, where people are like, "Oh no, this is the end." Like, there's no point doing anything. It's like, no, like if you give up, yeah, obviously they're gonna win. Like, in order to do something, you have to try. Like, if you don't try, you'll never know if you could have done it or not.
I completely agree with you, and I think that you are dealing with you have to understand what we're dealing with. I mean, Trump energized his base, who, for lack of better terms, were the losers. And losers used to know they were losers. And Trump realized, if I can convince them they're not the losers, that they're the winners and they're always right, that they'll be loyal to the nth degree. I don't know how long it's going to take us to run these clowns back to their compounds in Montana and Michigan, where they're surrounded by barbed wire out there. But it's going to take a while. And even though I don't think MAGA will go past, whenever, Trump, ends his term on this mortal coil, whenever that happens, I don't think there's anyone in place to replace him, but it's still going to take a long time for this to go away.
Yeah, well, and so another thing that we also have to grapple with is that it's not just the militia crazies out in the wilderness. Like it is your next door neighbor. Like it is people in your suburban communities. And if this country is going to heal, we really do need a reconciliation process, similar to what happened in South Africa after apartheid, or, with the Nuremberg trials. Like the big mistake that the Democratic Party made after Trump's first term was no one was held accountable. There were no consequences for any of those actions. And if we want to keep this from happening again, there have to be consequences for those actions. Otherwise, they're just going to keep trying to do it.
Yeah, Merrick Garland was stellar, wasn't he? Yeah, I
really did a bang up job on that one.
Yeah, you and I both, my friends. I want to make sure I point out your social media pages where people find you on Blue Sky. One of the things that's great here is people ask you, can you buy a jersey or something like this? And you actually have organizations, the Trevor Project and the Trans Lifeline. You encourage people, if they want to support what you're supporting, to donate to those causes, correct?
Yeah, of course. And then another thing, like if you do, like if you're looking for something to do, find your local community. And like generally your local community will show up at local city council meetings. So that's a great place to meet those people. But yeah, like in these times, we're going to need to support our local food banks, right? We're going to need to support like local rapid response teams to ICE. I mean, one of the big things that LA is doing right now is that people are buying out taco stands and the taco vendors, because those people can't be on the streets right now. Otherwise, ICE is going to they're going to come pick them up. So people are helping to keep those people supported, because they literally cannot work without being taken in by a fascist government. So we need to form those local bonds. We need to form those community bonds, and we need to look out for each other, because right now the federal government is not working for us. It is working against us. And the way you fight that is by creating local communities and sticking together.
Also, I do want to make sure I mention, even though the conversions is over, Games Done Quick is still going on. And is there still ways for people, if they want to donate and help out with their cause, as they also watch them fly through video games. Can they still do that?
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, so that's actually one of the big things about Games Done Quick is that it's fully streaming. So if you go on Twitch for Games Done Quick, like you can watch all of this happening and you can donate. And for all the games, they usually have kind of like stretch goals or bonus goals where if enough money is donated while the person is playing the game, then they do something extra, right? So for the Legend of Zelda game we were watching, it was so normally it takes the speedrunners about an hour to beat this game, and they're like, now we're going to show you how to beat it in 2.5 minutes if enough money gets raised, right? And so enough money got raised, and so it's this really like technical glitch that requires you put in 3 specific names on like the the save file screen, and then you have to talk to NPCs in a certain order and then enter the doghouse from the backside, and then there's a 50% chance it just crashes the game. And yeah, sure enough, it just crashed the game.
So I head over to Twitch. Games Done Quick on Twitch. You can go catch that and make a donation. Chris, great to see you again. Anytime, you're more than welcome back, my friend.
Yeah, thank you for having me on, Matt. I really appreciate it.
Chris Kluwe, we'll take a break.